Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So this video is a wrap up of all the books I read in June. There was one book that I didn't get to, so I'm at least pretty happy with that. Other than that, I did pretty good. So we're going to see today, I'm going to give you a summary of each book that I read, the pros, the cons. Some of them don't have very many pros and some of them don't have very many cons, so that should be interesting. And finally, I'm going to tell you what I would rate the book out of 5 stars. And I'm going to compare it to what I thought I would give it back in my TBR video that I did a month ago, and we're going to see how correct I was. Also, I apologize for my handwritten notes I'm going to be using, so I'm going to be looking down a little bit because some of these books I read a month ago and I can't remember everything I thought about it, so I'm going to be using my notes just for reference. So the first book that I read in June was this book called A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. I've talked about this book a lot already, so I don't want to say too much about it, but as far as the summary goes, it's the kind of like the novella at the end of a trilogy. So I can't really say too much without spoiling things. So I'm not going to tell you again what the whole trilogy is about, but the first book is called A Court of Thorns and Roses. So you can go look that up if you want to. I highly don't recommend it because the series just goes downhill. I love the first 2 books though, but the third book was awful. And I thought that this one was going to be better. I was kind of wrong. Basically it was about it's a Christmas story. It's called the winter solstice, like because they're in the night court in this fairyland. So you would think that that means that it was going to be interesting, winter solstice in the night court. No, it was just the most boring Christmas story. There was literally like a snowball fight with like ultimate high-powered fairies, the High Lord of the Night Court. You're like, why are you in a snowball fight? This is so stupid. And they're just like, might as well be baking cookies and stuff. I mean, it was not good. The 2 main characters who you wanted to end up together have already ended up together for a long time, so there's really like no stakes in this. Like there's no romance. I don't care anymore. Maybe maybe she should have dragged out the romance a little bit before. I don't know. Anyway, as far as the pros go, the only pro of this book is that it's over and I don't have to read anymore. Okay, as far as the cons go, they're infinite. Let me see. Let me read you some of the limitless cons here that I have. Boring, obviously. I already talked about the characters being together. The rest of the characters, besides the main ones, really have no depth whatsoever. I don't care about them. There are 2 sister characters, like the main girl has 2 sisters who are now like fairies as well, and they are so annoying. Both of them are annoying. One is mean and hates everyone, and then the other one is shy and backward and won't talk to anybody. And they both are just that's the only character traits they have, and they are so annoying. And they were annoying before, and now they're a focus in this book, and I don't understand why, because who cares? Anyway, it was painful to read those scenes. I almost quit when I only had 23 pages to go, apparently. Oh, by the way, I also said a pro was that it was short, so there's that. I hated the wording. There were so many sentence fragments, like for effect, but like you can only do so many sentence fragments before it just sounds annoying at some point. It's like, stop, just write in whole sentences like a normal person. She uses the words males instead of men because they're not men, they're fairies. So she says, oh, the males do this, males do that. I mean, the word male must be used at least a couple times on every page. And you're like, if I hear the word male again, like, oh, she looked over at the male, and you're like, what? That's so stupid. And same thing with the word mate. Oh my gosh, the word mate is used all the time. He was her mate. They were mates. And because they were mates, this happened. They're mated. And you're like, I don't want to ever hear these 2 words ever again. So that about drove me nuts. I know somebody online had counted how many times she used those words in some of her books, and I know book 3 was like that too, and it was insane. Okay, it's seriously just a Christmas story. It sounds like a fanfic, honestly, like I said with the snowball fight and stuff. It's seriously like somebody just wanted to write a fanfic and, they just thought, hey, what else could I write about? Let's just write a Christmas story. This book was not necessary. Somebody on Goodreads said, I'm free, so they don't have to read it anymore. I'm kind of the same way. Oh yeah, one other pro might be that there were other points of view, I guess. Like it was kind of interesting because in the other books, they didn't have other points of view. It was just the main character. It's weird though. Oh yeah, because some are in first person and some are in third person. You're like, what? Just pick one or the other. I don't know. Oh, the next book's going to be about one of the sister characters and another guy, but I don't care about them, so I definitely don't want to read that. the conversations are really detailed and drawn out and really awkward. And you're like, no one has these weird conversations like this. They're just painful and unnatural. And as far as stars goes, I would give this book what I give it. I gave it 1 star because, I mean, at least I finished it, but it was awful and I'm just glad it's over. I would not recommend this to anyone. Don't do this to yourself. Even if you just want to finish the series like I did, just stop at book 2 if you possibly can and read a summary of book 3 and then don't read this one at all. I'd predicted I was going to give it 3.5 stars, so I was pretty far off, and I gave it the benefit of the doubt, and I was very wrong. So anyway, I'm afraid to read any more Sarah J. Maas. I wanted to read her Throne of Glass series, but now I'm kind of scared because they say the same thing happens with that series, so we'll see. Okay, so moving on, and by the way, I apologize for the glare in my glasses. I know it does that, but I can't help it. There's a window in front of me, and it's just there. Anyway, the next book I read is called The Beautiful by Renee Audier, I think. And I know the sequel is coming out. I think it already came out, but I'm getting it for the library here soon. So I was really excited about this book. As far as the summary goes, it's basically about a girl who moves to New Orleans. She's from England or somewhere. It's been a while since I read this, or tried to. We'll get there. It's been a while. Anyway, so she's from England, and she comes over to New Orleans because of something horrible that happened in her past, and it's like supposed to be this big mystery about what it is. Well, like 20 pages in, it tells you why. And you're like, well, you should have dragged that out a little bit so it'd be a little bit more interesting. So anyway, that part's really annoying. And basically she joins these like nuns or something. And anyway, but she's definitely not a convent sort of person. And she finds these other people that are way more exciting, that are like this association of like weird people called the Brotherhood of, I don't know, something like that. And they each have like some kind of power, and there's definitely sort of vampires, but they definitely didn't show up very early on, and I don't even know if they show up maybe at the end. And there's this character named Sebastian who she talks to sometimes, and there's a serial killer who is not exciting at all, and it says it's a romance and a thriller and a mystery, and it wasn't really any of those things. So, as far as the pros go, let me see what I wrote down. Were there any? I mean, there were some vocabulary words that I had to look up, so I thought that was pretty good. I mean, I've been an English teacher for like 9 years and a librarian now for a couple years, so the fact that I was looking up words, I liked that she would use kind of, tricky vocabulary to get kids to learn more words. Other than that, no, there's really nothing good. There are no pros. The cons are, well, one, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I did not finish this book. I DNF'd it, as they say. I did not finish it. I made it, I think, halfway. Yeah, I think I got halfway, and I was like, okay, I've read this much. That's, halfway is a lot. I've given it a fair chance. In fact, probably more than what it deserved. 100 pages, I should have stopped. But anyway, I read half, and it was not worth my time. So here's the thing. I didn't hate this book like I did maybe Court of Frost and Starlight, because I was attached to those characters before and liked those books before. This book, I honestly just felt nothing. I mean, it was just there. And so I can't really say it was as bad as the other one, even though I didn't finish it, just because I just didn't really feel anything one way or the other. The plot was so slow moving that there was practically not one. The characters had no depth at all. I don't even know why some of them were there. The conversations between the characters were just ridiculous. The main character talked to this guy named Sebastian like twice and did not like him either time. They really disliked each other. They were mean to each other. Like there was nothing good about it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but she, is going to have feelings for it. Everybody's like, oh, you clearly have feelings for him. And I'm like, what? No, she doesn't. In what universe did they see that? It was very contrived and I thought it was really stupid. Okay, so there are no vampires. Oh yeah, this book would have sucked a lot more if there were vampires. Get it? Sucked. Okay, yeah. All right, I wrote that down. I was so sad. Some parts made no sense, like the hating the main guy to liking him. Oh yeah, it took like an entire page for a detective to ask her to answer a question. Like this detective talks to the main girl and says, "I need you to answer this question, miss." And then she like kind of says something. He's like, okay, I need you to answer the question. And then she says something else. And then he says it again. And it's like, I just spent the entire page with you saying, please answer the question. I mean, like nothing happened. It was so stupid. I didn't even get it. I was like, am I just stupid or is this book not very good? But I looked at some other reviews and a lot of other people didn't like it either. Here's another comment that I put. I was like, some kids only read 4 books a year for school. So in our school, they have to read a book they read more than 4. It's like 1 book a month. But if a kid had to read 1 book a month for like the 9 months they're in school, so if they only read 9 books ever, then, and if this was one of them, then I feel really sorry for them because they would think that this is what reading is. This is not what reading is. You should read books that you like. This is definitely not bringing back vampires anytime soon, and I was horrified to learn that it was a series. So overall, for the rating, I gave it a 0 because I didn't finish it, so I can't really even rate it. Okay, the next book I read in June is one book that I had read before, so it's kind of hard for me to say much that's not biased about it because I love it. And it was a reread for me. I've read it maybe 2 or 3 times in the past, so this is a book like time number 4 probably. So it's called Cold Days by Jim Butcher. It is the 14th book in the Dresden Files series. I've talked about this series before in some of my other videos and how the new book is coming out literally next week, and I am so excited for book 16. I've waited 4 years for book 16, so to prepare, I thought I would go ahead and reread 14 and 15. This is my favorite one, book 14, and it still held up as being my favorite one in the series for sure. I can't tell you what this one's about because it would spoil literally stuff that happened in the previous books, except I can say it's about a wizard who is also a detective who lives in Chicago. The beginning of the Dresden Files series, each story is kind of like a monster of the week thing where he has a crime to have to solve and he just has to use his wizardy powers to do it, and there's always some magic-y thing going on, and like there's fairies and vampires and various things like that. So in this book though, all I can tell you is he owes a favor to someone that he made a deal with because he wanted to protect someone he loved in a previous book. So he makes a horrible deal with someone to protect that person that he loved. And in this one, the deal kind of comes to fruition and he actually has to do favors for this bad person. It's sort of a bad and not really bad, like morally ambiguous person he made a bad deal with. So Harry is a good guy, but now he has become morally ambiguous more so throughout the series, which is what I love about it. He's still funny. He's always been funny and wisecracking, and he's like really nerdy because the author himself's like really nerdy. And so he makes a lot of pop culture references to video games and movies and things like that. And well, maybe not video games, because actually Harry doesn't play video games. He can't. In this book, wizards can't use technology because they like fry it basically because their powers like affect electricity and stuff. So anyway, that is what this book is about. I was going to see if I missed out on anything. Just that he's battle worn and jaded now, but he's still like the same Harry as before, but he has changed a lot throughout the series. So if you start the series, the Harry in book 1 compared to the Harry in this book is like a totally different character, Harry Dresden. So as far as the pros go, there are a lot. I mean, this book is fast paced. It's so funny. They're all funny. And I think one of the best things about Jim Butcher are his action scenes. They are amazing. You know, it's hard to write a good action scene. And his really keep you on the edge of your seat, and therefore you read the book so fast. I read these I fly through them because those action scenes are just so fast paced. And there's usually a lot of them, honestly. And then the other pro is that, of course, this one is getting more into just the lore of everything and, really just more about Harry and a continuous story, a continuous plot throughout all the books, more so than just like a one-off villain or something, as opposed to the previous books, which were all really good too, but I just really prefer these continuous stories. As far as the cons go, I mean, I guess you have to read 13 other books to get to this one, and they're not all the best. Like book 13 was definitely my least favorite. Most people don't really like it very well. I mean, there are definitely people that like it, but I was not one of them. So I guess that you just have to read a lot to be able to get to this. But that's about it. And as far as stars goes, I definitely still give it 5 out of 5 because this is one of my favorite series of all time ever, and you should totally read it. And the last book I actually finished reading in June was Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin, and I read this one on audiobook. So this is the second book in the Game of Thrones series. It is massively long, as you can see, and it took many, many hours, like 50, I don't know how many hours. It was a lot of hours, much longer than a normal audiobook. And anyway, I listened to it just like in the mornings when I was getting ready and at night when I was like taking a shower, and that's how I basically got through this book. So, and I was doing library inventory, which took a long time, many hours over the course of 5 days. And I listened to a lot of that book during that time because I had to do it all myself because of COVID. I couldn't have any teacher's aides, which I would normally have them help with doing inventory. So it was really sad. Anyway, this book, okay, what it's about, well, surely you know what Game of Thrones is about. If not, it's basically like a high fantasy political novel. That's basically, go watch the show or read the books, but don't watch the last couple seasons. The pros of this book compared to the other ones, it is really fast paced, I would have to say, even though it is long. I think it does move along pretty quickly. All the chapters have a point to them. There's nothing that you're like, oh man, that chapter was so pointless. So that's good. Let's see if I wrote down some more pros. Yeah, a lot of stuff's happening. I love the characters and the fact that I would say character driven, but not really. It's more like the characters reacting to things that happen to them. And they have to pay consequences for their actions. And they're just thrown into these circumstances in this world that then they have to like react to and deal with. So it is pretty interesting. Oh, it focuses a lot, of course, on the kids. So, you know, the parents, like the older adults aren't really, I mean, yeah, they're around, but like the Stark family, their kids are kind of like some of the main characters. And I just think it's neat to have children as main characters in a high fantasy political novel. As far as the cons go, the only thing I put is that it does take absolutely forever to read. And I like to read more about the whole point of me rereading the series is so that I can learn more about the backstories of some of the characters and just like the lore of the world and all of the history, because it's crazy. There's like the Blackfire Rebellion and all the Targaryen kings and their past, like all that stuff. The Faceless Men, you know, just all the extra things that aren't just the main characters. And a lot of that isn't really built up yet in the series, and I don't think he'd planned it all out yet. So books 4 and 5 really do a lot of that. So I'm kind of looking forward to when I get to those. So in this one, it's just kind of more focused on just the plot and just the main characters. So that'd probably be like the only thing I could really think of as a con. And I do want to recommend really quickly, if you like Game of Thrones, watch Alt-Shift-X videos on YouTube, because he does great analyses of Game of Thrones. And finally, I predicted I would give this 4.5 stars, and I definitely will continue to give it 4.5 stars. I think books 1 and 3 I would give 5 stars because they were my favorites. At least they used to be. We'll see upon rereading book 3 if I still give it a 5 star. But I would say that this one is not quite as good as the other ones, but it's still really good. So 4.5 for me. And the last book that I read, I didn't actually finish it, but I got pretty far. I got over halfway into it, and it is The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is the book I was a little bit worried about because I didn't know much about it, and I had pretty high hopes for it, and I thought that I would give it a really high rating. So what is this book about? Well, basically what I know so far, which is a lot, and I don't want to spoil too much for you, but basically it's about a girl who... I mean, there's a lot of main characters, but I guess the main character is the girl who lives, she goes from Ohio to New York. Her parents send her, this is not going to spoil too much, I promise. It's at the very beginning of the book, but she has a gift that people think is more just like a party trick, but it's of course like a power that she has, which is if she lays her hands on an object, she can tell you something about it. Like she knows about the person that owned it. And she uses this as like a party trick one time. And she tells somebody something bad and everybody gets mad at her, and so her parents are like, you know what, we're gonna send you to live with your uncle. Hey, wait, I just realized that sounds like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Interesting. Anyway, they send her to live with her uncle in New York City. Oh, and by the way, this is in the 1920s. It's like the Roaring 20s. It's like Gatsby era. The descriptions are amazing. It's like the world is so vivid, and I feel like I'm really in New York in the 20s. It's awesome. Anyway, that's more of a pro, I guess. But anyway, she gets to New York and she's super excited, but she has to stay with her uncle, who one just kind of lets her run around, does whatever she wants. So she loves it, actually. She's glad to go there. And two, well, her uncle runs this museum that's like a museum of like occult artifacts and things. And he gets called in to help the police on a case about a serial killer who's using like weird occult symbols like pentagrams but like other things too, and the weird messages that he's leaving, like these weird religious messages. And anyway, he gets called in to sort of assist the police, and she winds up going with him to look at the first crime scene. And she of course touches the girl's shoe and has some images and realizes that her power might be able to help them find the killer. But there's other people that have powers as well, and they haven't really all met each other yet in the book. So I'm just intrigued to see how they're going to come together. But the group of people is called the Diviners. That's like people that have powers, basically. And they're going to have to stop this. The serial killer isn't just a typical killer. He's like this ancient evil that they've awoken who comes every so often. And I don't know if he's like a demon, or it's definitely supernatural. And anyway, it's so good. And I'm really intrigued to continue. And I think there's 4 in the series, I believe. And I said I was going to read the second one this month as well, but I didn't even finish the first one. So let's be real. All right. As far as the pros go, it's everything. The writing's amazing. The style is great. Like I said, the descriptions, I feel like I'm really in New York City in the 1920s. I'll read you some of it when I actually get done and do a full review. The characters are wonderful. The changing POVs are awesome. Like it changes point of view a lot, but it's really exciting. Very fast paced because of that. The plot is good. There's intrigue. There's mystery. And every time I love it, I'm really intrigued. I can't seem to always want to pick it up though. So I guess that's a con. One of the cons is it's so fast paced and there's like so much happening that if you read it in large chunks, I don't know, I feel like I have trouble reading it in large chunks. I feel like I just need to read a little bit at a time, and I'm like, whoa, a lot happened. I need to go digest that for a minute, and then I'll come back. So that's kind of what I've been doing, just reading it in small chunks at a time. Some days I'd only read like 10 pages, which is why I'm not as far as I wanted to be. And other than that, that's pretty much the only con. And basically, I cannot wait to read more. It's so good. I predicted before that I would give it a 4. I would say so far I give it a 4.5. Maybe it'll depend on the ending or if it has a cliffhanger for the next book or whatever. But I would honestly give it 4.5 because this is a really amazing book for a young adult book. So those are all the books I read in June. I feel like I did pretty good. Basically, I was 1.5 books short of my goal. Plus, I didn't finish The Beautiful because it was terrible. So hopefully next month I'll get to more of my books. I don't know. We'll find out. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a nice day.